I'm from Oldham, Rob's from Cass, so no idea of who he is. And we see this little guy zipping about who's absolutely tiny. I don't know if you remember the old PlayStation Will Jonah Lomus, the rugby.
Yeah.
Do you remember? Do you remember the little guy? He was
Yeah.
mega fast. That was Rob Burrow.
Right.
And just like unreal. And then it weren't until sort of Rob joined the academy, he'd have been 16, 17. I was in and out of the first team at the time on the fringes. And over that next couple of years, then you start to cross paths a little more. You're playing the reserves a little bit together. Then he starts to make a couple of first team appearances. And before you know it, I'm 22 and made captain. He's 20-year-old and in the first team every week. And we sat next to each other in the dressing room every single day. So that friendship starts. But as you know, we were a real close-knit side. And the core of that team is probably 8, 9, maybe 10 players stayed together and played there for best part of their careers. You're talking 10, 12, 15 years together. So as you know yourself, what comes with that is some amazing times together and going through some really tough times, and that just builds them bonds that you get in rugby teams and a lot of team sports. Yeah. So we fast forward and we get to December of last year. Rob's been retired for 2 years. He finished as a grand final winner at Old Trafford in October 2017.
7 grand final.
I think he's 8. I think he's 8. He's 8, yeah. And you start to notice his speech is not quite where it is, and we put the pressure on him to go and see our doc, and then goes through a series of tests, and within sort of 6 weeks we get the diagnosis through, and it just rocked us all, absolutely floored everybody. And this is week before Christmas 2019, so you're only 11 and a half months ago. Very quickly, Brian Redpath, who from my very short stint in rugby union was my coach at Yorkshire Carnegie, he reached out straight away and said, I'll get you up to see Doddie. He arranged that. We were there within 2 days in front of Doddie, and which was brilliant. It was really good for Rob.
Did you go up to the farm?
No, we met in Carlisle in a travel lodge.
Right.
And that was when that incredible picture of a 6'5" Doddie Weir stood next to a 5'4" Rob Burrow, and you just look at it and you're going, wow. And then
how was that meeting Doddie? Because he was obviously further down, and he's done amazingly well, Doddie. But the great man was clearly beginning to struggle, and so there's obviously an awareness that might be the path that Rob would have to tread. So how was that meeting?
Very, very positive. Doddie had an outlook that was just really refreshing. Everything up until that point had been quite depressing. Yeah. The outlook. And Doddie took away a lot of those concerns, a lot of those worries, talked about attitude and how you attack MND and the things that had worked for him and his family. And we come away quite buoyed. We chatted a lot on the journey home, very positively about what the immediate future could look like for Rob, and certainly about enjoying Christmas and trying to make some really good memories with his 3 young children as quickly as possible and spend some time with them. But within, I mean, well, you know, you were at that gala dinner we held for him. Very quickly, the club rallied, his former teammates rallied. We had the game in January for him against Bradford, which were a shared testimonial. And we had the gala dinner, which you kindly attended with a host of other sporting legends from around the UK, which was wonderful. And then we hit lockdown and COVID and everything just at a standstill. Yeah. So throughout that period, we obviously all kept in touch with Rob, but things have changed dramatically for him. He's now in a chair. He now communicates through his phone, and COVID hurt and stopped a lot of the things we were hoping to do for him throughout the year. Yeah. Hence, this was put together 7 weeks ago.
Whose idea?
Crazily mine.
Right.
Mine.
Just thought 7 in 7. Just came up.
Yeah.
With...
So I was thinking about doing something. We had a family holiday booked for the end of the season, which we were hoping to go at Christmas. Flights got changed. Eldest son's got exams, and it was like, well, we can't take him out. He's in his GCSEs. It's not. We just can't take him out of school. So
you thought running around Saddleworth 7 times would be a great holiday?
Yeah. I don't think my wife saw it like that, but I just thought, we got one chance at doing something pretty special, and I've run a fair bit this year, especially with lockdown. I've been out of, I've probably done 3 marathons up until October, locally. And Rob's player sponsor throughout his whole time at the Rhinos had a big sum of money he wanted to donate. And jokingly, I said, well, why don't you sponsor a challenge? I'll do. And he said, well, what do you fancy doing? I said, well, I'll do another marathon. And he said, no, this is the amount I want to donate. That a single marathon ain't enough. Right. So jokingly, I said, I'll do 7 and 7. And he went, all right then. So that was it. We were in. We were in, and I, sort of over the next couple of days, texted a few mates locally, and Chris being one of them, and said, look, do you fancy being in on this? And selflessly, everybody just went, I'm in. Yeah, and then as we got a bit closer, well, that started to unravel a little bit, and people probably realised the enormity of it and the commitment. But it has been an unbelievable week. It's been great.
Do you understand? Can you? The public have just gone. They've taken you to their hearts. Your fellow colleagues, they'll follow you anyway. I always talk about the great leaders. They don't like the fire under people. They like the fire in bellies. You have that ability to do it. But even knowing the level of support for Rob, can you imagine? Can you believe we're currently sat on about what you're sat on 1.6 million in a week?
Not at all. Well, and we went in Tuesday morning before we started the first one. We got together in this car park locally outside of, my local pub, if you like, at 6:30 in the morning with 40k in our Just Giving. Yeah. And looked at each other and sort of gone, well, we're in now. We're going to make the most of it. We're going to have a great week. And if we can get 77,777 and fall over the line with it, we'll be absolutely made up. And from that moment, it just went bananas. And I think the BBC have been outstanding in the coverage of what they've done with Doddie.
Sally Nugent, she's been incredible for you. And is she just a league fan that you've got to know? Her and Dan Walker were absolutely amazing.
I agree. They've just been unbelievable. BBC Breakfast, Sally Nugent did the film. Well, firstly, they did getting the trio together, Doddie, Stephen Darby and Rob together up in Edinburgh, which was a wonderful piece for BBC. Then we had Rob's documentary, which had over 3 million views. So straight away, there was a captive audience. And Sally actually, her dad played rugby union. So she was a rugby fan didn't really know which chord, but was a rugby fan. And on the back of the film, which I'd played a part in, I did mention to her at the time, I'm going to do a challenge in December. Would you be able to support it? And she said, yeah, of course, anything you need. So I've kept them updated, and we've obviously bounced some stuff off because we had to get clearance because of COVID and running marathons and Public Health England signing stuff off and getting COVID tested and all those other bits.
You had to keep the route secret, didn't you? Because otherwise you'd have had half the Leeds following you.
Yeah. So, and she'd been brilliant. She just jumped on it and said, I'll do it, anything I can to help Rob and his family. I think the way Rob has conducted himself and how his family is set up, it reminds her of her own, and it's really touched her, and she's absolutely driven this. And you're right, Dan Walker as well. He's been wonderful. Their support for it, the support for MND through all the coverage this year has really driven the coverage, and certainly this last week, because without them, You know, we could have been sat here now with 50, 60K and still beaten up and still having done what we've done. And that would have been fine, Will, don't get me wrong. Yeah. We'd have been happy with that. If we'd have got 77 grand at the start, then I'd have snapped your hand off. But for it to do what it's done, I've been on a Zoom every day with families of M&D sufferers, of people who've lost family members due to motor neuron disease, and it's such a cruel, cruel disease. There's so many worthy charities and causes out there that how can you pick M&D out above any? But what I would say is it is so cruel, what it does to families. And, you know, the stat itself, 50% of people who are diagnosed are gone within 2 years. That's it. That's it.
And Rob, just, you know, I think people underestimate or don't perhaps contextualise it. Rob Burrow, 5'4", legend of league. So just tell us about those battles for him to gain recognition and to be as immense as he was, the character and the player.
Yeah. Do you know, if I tried to liken him to somebody from rugby union who would have an impact like him, it'd be Jason Robinson. Now, I know Jason came from league initially, but that type of player who was so quick, so agile, could change direction and maintain top speed and just make people look silly. Small in stature, gymnast build, so strong, fit, fast, skillful. He had a brilliant left foot, Rob, as well. So he just, to have him in your side, teams thought he was a target. But because he was that small, he'd whack people under the ball and just get right underneath. You know them tackles that get you right in the guts, them soft bits that there's no bones to cover, and it just get people just right. And ultra competitive, and just had that ability to be able to do something special when the team needed it. And he, throughout his whole playing career, from being 6 when he started playing, he's always been the little guy. So he's always had to find a different way of standing out, of being special. And
so how tough is it to see him like he is now?
Yeah, it's devastating for all of us. You don't want that for anybody, you know. And that's why this disease is so cruel, because for some people it is so quick. And to understand that everything in his mind is exactly the same.
Yeah.
But there's just stuff that has stopped working. Yeah. And every time I see him, when I saw him on Saturday at the end of the marathon, his eyes lit up. He's got that twinkle. There's a big smile.
I think one of my favourite bits was we saw the footage. Did you know he'd be at the mural when you ran? Because that look on his face, that smile, what you've given him, other than obviously the support for him and his family, but also for what he knows in terms of potential legacy for motor neuron disease research. But he looked like, you were his captain. He looked like my captain, as you ran past. It was an extraordinary moment. And at the end, when you finished, I know you walked away because you said that's the hardest bit, when you saw him at the end of a marathon. So was there ever a moment, I mean, you're going through pictures and seeing scenes like that, how tough it was there ever a moment you thought, I'm broken, I can't put one foot in front of the other?
No, not at all. And it was tough. Yesterday was tough. Yesterday was the toughest day by a mile. I think it was like being in a semi-final.
Yeah.
You know, you're that close and you can touch that final, but you got to do it. And those semi-finals are often harder than the finals. So that was the toughest day.
Could you have done today in 3 hours because you knew, off we go. If you could have left Barry McDermott on his bike, you'd gone.
I don't think I could have done 3 hours. I did feel like I had a couple of gears to kick. If I needed to kick, if it would have been cut short on time, I'd have been able to push. Yeah. There was some concern with that, with a bad Achilles. I thought, here we go, if something pings. The hardest bit was the training. And when I say training, because we only had about 7 weeks prep, I decided to do 3 and 3. And that was at the end of October. Day 2 of 3 and 3 was horrendous, because in my own mind, I was training and I was asking myself 1,000 times, what on earth are you doing here? What are you doing?
Yeah.
And then after that, when I got the 3 and 3 done, I thought, I've got this in me.
Yeah.
It's gonna be tough, but I can do it. I know I can do it.
And I can hear your phone pinging away in the background. I just want to ask you 2 or 3 more, if that's all right.
Yep.
Tell me about There's a Snake in My Boot.
Yeah, so it was on that trip back from Carlisle. And Doddie had talked about a number of things that he thought would be really useful for Rob. There was some memory box stuff. There was some voice recording. There was some reading some bedtime stories so that they could still play them to the kids if Rob lost his voice quickly. And Doddie mentioned about an app on your phone where you can type stuff in and it'd say it in your voice. And Rob's always been a comical guy who's used one-liners from films. You know, you've always got that guy in the dressing room who's just very quick, and he, at that moment when it's a bit tense, just says a daft line and kills it. He had that ability, and you know, we would throw in a couple of lines across each other that we'd like his voice recorder to say, and one of them being from Toy Story, when the child picks Woody up and pulls his string, and he said, "There's a snake in my boots." That was the thing that we have said to each other a fair bit throughout this 11 months, and it's the thing that makes us both smile. The text I got from him this morning before Marathon 7 was, "If it gets tough, just think of this: there's a snake in my boots."